The world watches with bated breath as the tension mounts and the stakes grow ever higher. An icy wind blows across the plains of Eastern Europe, carrying with it the stench of fear and the specter of war. The once peaceful fields now echo with the distant sounds of conflict, a chilling reminder of the fragile peace that once existed. The conflict in Ukraine is no longer just a regional crisis, it has become a dangerous game of chicken between Russia and the West, a game where the stakes are higher than they have ever been since the darkest days of the Cold War. The world watches as each side maneuvers, hoping to avoid a catastrophic collision. A new Iron Curtain is descending, dividing the world into two armed camps, each armed with weapons that could end civilization in a blinding flash. The memories of past conflicts loom large, casting a shadow over the present and future. The West, led by the United States, has committed itself to supporting Ukraine, providing billions of dollars in military aid, and sending a clear message to Moscow: aggression will not be tolerated. This support is not just material, it is a statement of solidarity, a promise to stand by Ukraine in its darkest hour. Russia, under the iron fist of Vladimir Putin, sees this support as a direct threat, an existential challenge to its ambitions in its own backyard. The Kremlin's rhetoric grows more defiant, its actions more aggressive, as it seeks to reassert its dominance. Putin has made it abundantly clear that he is willing to use any means necessary to achieve his goals, even if it means risking a catastrophic conflict with the West. His resolve is matched only by the determination of those who oppose him, creating a volatile and unpredictable situation. The situation is precarious, a powder keg waiting for a single spark to ignite it. The world stands on edge, knowing that one wrong move could lead to disaster. Every day brings fresh news of troop movements, of military exercises, of bellicose rhetoric from both sides. The drumbeat of war grows louder, drowning out the voices of reason and diplomacy. The world holds its breath, hoping against hope that cooler heads will prevail, that a way out of this crisis can be found before it's too late. Diplomatic efforts continue, but the path to peace is fraught with obstacles and uncertainty. But the clock is ticking, and the drums of war are beating louder. Time is running out, and the choices made in the coming days and weeks will shape the future of the world for generations to come. The United States, casting itself as the defender of democracy and the guarantor of European security, has opened its arsenal to Ukraine, providing a steady stream of increasingly sophisticated weaponry. Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger anti-aircraft systems, and high-mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS, have all found their way into the hands of Ukrainian forces, bolstering their ability to resist the Russian onslaught. The Biden administration, facing pressure from Congress and a public increasingly supportive of Ukraine, has steadily escalated the level of military aid, sending a clear signal to Moscow that the West is prepared to stand with Ukraine for the long haul. The latest tranche of aid includes advanced Patriot air defense systems, capable of shooting down ballistic missiles and aircraft, a move that has further inflamed tensions with Russia. The Kremlin views this influx of advanced weaponry as a direct threat to its own security, accusing the United States of fighting a proxy war against Russia on Ukrainian soil. Putin has warned that any attacks on Russian territory from weapons supplied by the West will be met with a swift and decisive response, raising fears of a wider conflict that could engulf the entire European continent. Vladimir Putin, the steely-eyed former KGB agent who has ruled Russia with an iron fist for over 2 decades, is not a man accustomed to backing down. His tenure has been marked by a relentless pursuit of power and a vision of restoring Russia to its former glory. He sees the West's support for Ukraine as a personal affront, a challenge to his authority, and a threat to his vision of a resurgent Russian empire. This vision is not just about territorial expansion, but also about reclaiming Russia's place as a dominant global power. The conflict in Ukraine is more than a geopolitical struggle. It is a symbol of the broader ideological battle between East and West. Putin's determination to assert control over Ukraine is driven by a deep-seated belief that the country is an integral part of Russia's historical and cultural sphere. In a series of increasingly bellicose speeches, he has warned the West to back off, accusing them of trying to weaken and dismember Russia. His rhetoric has grown more intense, painting the West as an existential threat to Russia's sovereignty and stability. Putin's rhetoric has taken on an almost apocalyptic tone, with thinly veiled threats to unleash Russia's nuclear arsenal, if the West continues to interfere in what he considers to be Russia's rightful sphere of influence. His words are not just for show, they reflect a willingness to escalate the conflict to unprecedented levels. "This is not a bluff," he warned in a televised address to the nation, his voice cold and menacing. The gravity of his words was unmistakable, sending a clear message to both his domestic audience and the international community. If the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This statement underscores the lengths to which Putin is willing to go to defend his vision of Russia's future. These threats have sent shockwaves through the international community, evoking memories of the darkest days of the Cold War, when the world teetered on the brink of nuclear annihilation. The stakes are higher than ever, and the potential consequences are dire. The specter of mushroom clouds rising over European cities is no longer a distant nightmare. It is a terrifying possibility that has become all too real. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a resolution but preparing for the worst. As tensions escalate, the international community must navigate this perilous situation with caution and resolve. The future of global stability hangs in the balance, and the actions taken in the coming days and weeks will shape the course of history. Section 4, Dnipro, a harbinger of what's to come. The city of Dnipro, nestled on the banks of the Dnipro River in central Ukraine, became the epicenter of global anxiety on November 20, 2024. Known for its rich history and vibrant culture, Dnipro had always been a symbol of resilience and progress. But on that fateful night, its serene landscape was shattered by an event that would reverberate around the world. At precisely 10:37 p.m. local time, a blinding flash lit up the night sky, followed by a deafening roar that shook the city to its core. The tranquility of the night was replaced by chaos and fear as the residents of Dnipro were jolted awake by the terrifying explosion. A Russian hypersonic missile traveling at 5 times the speed of sound had slammed into a residential neighborhood, reducing apartment buildings to rubble and leaving a smoldering crater where a playground once stood. The sheer force of the impact obliterated everything in its path, turning a once lively community into a scene of devastation. The attack, which killed dozens of civilians and injured hundreds more, sent shockwaves far beyond the borders of Ukraine. Families were torn apart, and the community was left to grapple with the sudden loss of loved ones. The international community watched in horror as the true extent of the damage became clear. It was a brutal demonstration of Russia's willingness to escalate the conflict, to target civilian infrastructure, and to bring the war to the heart of a major Ukrainian city. The message was unmistakable. No place was safe, and the rules of engagement had been irrevocably altered. But the Dnipro attack was more than just a horrific act of violence. It was a strategic message, a chilling reminder of Russia's military capabilities and its willingness to use them. The precision and power of the hypersonic missile underscored a new era of warfare, where speed and stealth could outmatch traditional defense systems. The hypersonic missile, virtually undetectable by existing air defense systems, represented a quantum leap in Russia's offensive capabilities, giving it the ability to strike anywhere in Europe with impunity. This technological advancement posed a significant threat to global security as nations scrambled to develop countermeasures and reassess their defense strategies. The attack on Dnipro was not just a local tragedy, it was a harbinger of what's to come, a stark warning that the world could no longer ignore the escalating tensions and the potential for widespread conflict. Section 5, a chilling new doctrine. Just one day before the Dnipro attack, Russia unveiled a chilling new military doctrine that sent shivers down the spines of Western leaders. The doctrine, which explicitly lowers the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons, makes it clear that Russia is prepared to use its nuclear arsenal not only in response to a nuclear attack, but also in response to a conventional attack that threatens the existence of the Russian state. This new doctrine, which represents a significant departure from Russia's previous nuclear posture, has been widely condemned by the international community as reckless and destabilizing. Critics argue that it increases the risk of miscalculation and accidental nuclear war, and that it gives Russia a green light to use nuclear weapons in a wide range of scenarios that do not meet the traditional definition of self-defense. The doctrine also explicitly mentions the possibility of using nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states that are supported by nuclear powers, a clear warning to NATO members providing military assistance to Ukraine. This new posture, which essentially holds NATO members hostage to Russia's nuclear threats, has raised the stakes of the conflict to unprecedented levels. Section 6. The Ghosts of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As the world grapples with the implications of Russia's new nuclear doctrine and the very real possibility of a nuclear conflict, the ghosts of Hiroshima and Nagasaki loom large. The horrific images of those cities, obliterated in a blinding flash of light and heat, serve as a stark reminder of the unimaginable human cost of nuclear war. The survivors of those bombings, many of whom still bear the physical and psychological scars of that day, have dedicated their lives to warning the world about the dangers of nuclear weapons. They have spoken out against the madness of nuclear deterrence, arguing that the only way to prevent another Hiroshima or Nagasaki is to eliminate these weapons of mass destruction once and for all. Their pleas have taken on a new urgency in recent months, as the risk of nuclear conflict has increased dramatically. The world is at a crossroads, facing a choice between a future of peace and disarmament, or a future haunted by the specter of nuclear annihilation.